Our next presenter is David Pennington from GSEU. Please, David, join me on stage. David is the project leader and member of several portfolio leadership teams in the EU, Joint Research Center, and in the Land Resource and Supply Chain Assessment Unit, and he's going to tell us the needs and interaction on CRM knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you for this invitation. I think this will complement quite well Elia's presentation, which was very to the point and very good. Thank you. So I'm David Pennington from the European Commission, and I work on the Joint Research Centre side. So in the panel, you will have Robert Thomas, also from DG GROW. And we're much more focused on the information, the knowledge side of things, policy support. JRC is an in-house Directorate General, providing in-house information to the Commission services, interacting with them, but also sort of bridging with the community, with various organizations, Eurogeo surveys being one of those, and very important. Which one? This one. Okay. I won't go into, I won't duplicate at all what Elia's just said, because that's all the background knowledge, the insights into the demand that's massively increasing to meet the twin transition, the problems to meet that from a supply perspective, and what the proposed act, which is now going through the trialogue, is aiming to achieve. So what comes out of the end of the process for the CRM Act probably will look very different to what's gone in, but let's see. So what I will try to do, though, is identify a little bit the kind of information that we need and where this is being used. And so there are some cross-linkages. The first part of the RMIS, so the Raw Materials Information System, maybe I'll take just 2 seconds to talk about that. In 2015, the Circular Economy Action Plan identified the need for a raw materials information system and set this up. So this was primarily DG GROW working closely with JRC to set up this raw materials information system. And when the Act came out, we launched a very different looking RMIS, which is RMIS 3.0. On the same day that the Commission proposed the Act. So that was part of the package, let's say, of the Commission. And this provides information on various aspects of raw materials, as you can imagine from the previous presentation. So one of the first things that the Commission needs is really risk analyses, stress tests, looking at resilience and so forth, the supply chains, looking at strategic autonomy, things like this. And in the Act, a lot of emphasis put on things like diversification. And we see some examples of this. Obviously, the Commission, led by DG GROW, has its own critical raw materials methodology that's assessed every 3 years at the moment. I think that will stay the case under the Act. What's new there as well is also strategic raw materials, which is slightly different. So those are materials linked to certain specific technologies and sectors that are considered highly strategic, and those are the focus of the targets. So this methodology was set up, there's assessment, and then there's supporting fact sheets that go with that. There's also a foresight study that's been duplicated twice now, so it was also published at the same time as the Act and the new list in 2023. But there's also a lot of other analyses ongoing, sort of also looking forward. One of the big things was with Ukraine. This was not expected, of course, the invasion of Ukraine, but what we had to do overnight, or as quickly as possible, was provide a kind of an understanding how this would affect metals and mineral supply to the EU. And also to look at what are the diversification options from supply from Russia, because for many critical raw materials, including things like titanium and so forth, titanium sponges, we're very reliant on Russia. So in a very short matter of time, we had to do analyses on different metals and minerals. So first, what's affected, but also looking at the future supply. What's the capacities of known activities of mining, of production and so forth around the globe, and where these might come from as alternative sources, and also to look at things like resources and reserves in the longer term. So these analyses were there, they were put online in the RMIS, so we were quite transparent with that. Similarly, on the Act, there was a lot of interest, resources, reserves again, but also future supply. Where can these materials come from? How can they be produced in Europe? Sometimes from tailings and so forth. Also secondary raw materials. It was highlighted sustainability is important. In fact, it's so important there's a whole chapter in the Critical Raw Materials Act on sustainability, focused on circularity and also on environmental footprint. And then similarly, we had this situation in August this year where China decided that it would move ahead with potential export restrictions. So we immediately had to provide information, very short notice again, on gallium and germanium, what industries might be affected, again, where are potential alternative sources for the EU industry, and so forth. And more recently, looking at trade as well, to what extent current those restrictions have affected the trade and so forth. The same with Ukraine, of course. And then now we're starting to look at advanced materials. So they're not direct substitutes, but they do have implications on what kind of materials you require for wind energy, for batteries, things like this. Because if you move from one technology to another, you obviously change the chemistries and the types of materials that are needed for those different uses, like electronic vehicles and so forth. Another area where we need a lot of information is on secondary raw materials, and I think this is a bit, I'm not sure you call it a disaster, but it's really an area where we have very little information and data to even say what are recycling rates, post-consumer recycling rates within the EU. So that's really a huge problem, I would say. But we've got quite a lot of modeling and analysis that really goes down into, again, chemistries. What are the current chemistries of technologies and so forth? What are the future ones? And for things like batteries and vehicles. We have to have information for monitoring, of course. We had the raw material scoreboard in the past. It's not been updated, but that had a lot of different entries that came from the EuroGeo surveys. And as I mentioned, we've got to have increasingly information for environmental footprint and due diligence. This is not the current sort of generic information like a ton of copper has a certain CO2 footprint. This is really sort of saying, okay, if we buy from this particular source, this material, what is the environmental footprint compared to another one? Or you use it in a competitiveness context. How can we promote extraction and processing that is more environmentally preferable and restrict market products on the EU market, irrespective of where they come from, based on their environmental footprint? Similar for the due diligence from the social side. So this all requires information, data, in this case more on value chains, but really detailed. You know, what are the energy consumption per ton of a material from a specific mining operation? And then, as was mentioned before, obviously there's international development partnerships. So there's the EU partnerships recently launched, raw materials partnerships. There's several launched and several in the pipeline, etc. I think I have this slide thing. Yeah, that's good. Okay, just fast. I mean, a lot of this requires interactions and integration. So between the RMIS team and EuroGeo Surveys team, we've obviously got to strengthen that and meet more often and sort of see what information we need. And that really supports then this rapid EU level access to knowledge. So without having it already in-house, processed, compiled, we can't do that. And the RMIS obviously supports dissemination, so people can go there at an EU level, find information, and then go back to the source if they want more detail. Okay, this is just examples. They're very fast. So this is the raw materials profiles. So it would just, in the RMAS, you could click on a certain material. It will bring you up a dashboard of information. And then below, you can just see the bottom of it. You have different modules. So at the moment, the production module is online. So you can see who's producing what in the EU and worldwide and so forth. But we hope to have fairly soon the module on secondary raw materials and working on trade. Similarly, for countries, you can select a country, and we're updating these. Probably the most advanced ones are for Africa, not for Europe. Okay, and then you'll find a whole load of information. I just selected one subset of the information here. There's some mine locations, for example, in South Africa, and then they're overlaid so you can play around with this online. So this kind of information where we need to have interactions, mine locations, processing locations, secondary raw materials processing, also resources and reserves. Last but not least, there's the linkage with sectors and technologies, so you can connect on different technologies. There's quite a broad range, and it'll tell you what kind of raw materials are required both now and in the future for the different sectors and selected technologies. I won't go into the details here. That's pretty much it. You can contact us at the functional email box or myself or Simone Manfredi directly. Okay, thank you.